Now welcome to the start of a new fan fiction here on the channel. This is going to be a little different than the ones I have done before. This is going to be all original, not a sort of what-if scenario where I take something that has already happened and rewrite it. This is all new characters, new settings, and so on. The idea for this came from my discussions of what would a Jedi do in certain situations. This is kind of that idea put into story form, though yes, there will also be a bigger overarching plot. I wanted this to in some ways mirror one of the things that George Lucas was originally inspired by, that being the old serialized shows like Flash Gordon that he watched as a kid. Anyway, before getting to it, I have to give a big thank you to Thomas at Petrichor Creations for providing the art and saving me from having to use AI art. I did not want to have to do that, and thanks to him, I didn't, and please do visit his Instagram, a link will be in the description below. Also, another huge thank you to William Clear for providing the score, and his Spotify page will be in the description below. I have to say thank you to both of these guys for the amazing work they have done that is helping to bring this story to life. And so, without any further ado, let's start the story. The two Jedi, a Master and Padawan, stand side by side at the entrance to a cave. The alien-looking world around them is vibrant and lush, filled with the sounds of strange creatures and warmed by a blazing sun above. But ahead of them is only silence and darkness. "How can you not feel that, Master?" asks the young female Padawan, trying but failing to keep a calm, composed look upon her face, as she hesitantly reaches out her hand towards the darkness. It's almost as if she expects that there has to be something tangible there to take hold of. The Master then only shrugs humbly before saying, "I'm not quite sure how to explain my lack of experiencing something that I cannot experience." That causes the Padawan to briefly frown before saying back, "I just can't believe you feel nothing. Not that I have your experience, Master, but I've never felt anything even remotely like this before. Not even when..." "Keep your focus on the present, Padawan. We learn from the past, but we mustn't dwell there, lest we sacrifice the chance to seize the moment and make tomorrow better." Yes, of course, Master." It's then that a very old man, a human man, who stands but a few paces behind them and has led them to this cave after a young boy ran into it and never came back out, he says to them, or maybe actually says to himself, "It's strange. When I was a boy, this cave terrified me. Couldn't get anywhere near it. But now, after all these years, there's something strangely welcoming about it, yet still terrifying." The Master and Padawan exchange a look, as if asking each other if they understand what he could mean exactly. It's then the Padawan who glances over her shoulder and says to him, "So, this cave has always felt like this?" "It has as long as I have been alive." "And you're sure the boy ran in there?" "Well, pretty sure. We were nearby gathering some Nindo root. Closer than I usually would have gotten, I figure, at least closer than I would have at his age. And just when I realized where we were, and was about to tell him we should get back across the stream, he started saying something about hearing his mother calling him, and he just ran off towards the cave. I followed as best I could. I can't quite move like I once did, you know. And when I got here, he was gone. Don't see anywhere else he could have gone but into the cave." "And his mother?" "Has been dead for more than 3 seasons now. Both his parents have been. It was a terrible accident, you see." Finally, the Master speaks up and says, "And you say he ran in there yesterday morning?" The old man gives a big affirmative nod of the head and says, "Yep, some of the others tried to go in after him, but they couldn't bring themselves to get close to it, not anywhere near this close. Even his uncle, who's taken care of him since the accident, he couldn't get within 100 paces of the cave." The Padawan, her eyes again focused on the darkness in front of her, says, "And yet he was able to run right in? How? How if he felt..." She swallows back a lump of fear in her throat and says, "How if he felt what I'm feeling right now?" "Hope," the Master says. The Padawan then looks up at him and continues, "Hope can be a powerful ally against fear, my Padawan." "The hope of what exactly? That his dead mother is in there?" The Master simply shrugs. "Well, hope can also be an enemy of rational thinking. In this case, though, considering what you're feeling, I'd wager he did hear something." The Padawan again stares into the darkness as the Master continues. "Either way, I don't think we'll solve the mystery by just standing here, nor will we save the boy from whatever is within there causing this fear." It's then, after now having suggested going in, that the Master seems to notice just how afraid his Padawan appears. the impact that this fear that he cannot feel is having upon her. I can go in alone if... But she quickly shakes her head. No, I can do this, master. To that he simply gives a nod of his head, as if that was the answer he expected, but not the only one he would have accepted. And then, after telling the old man to wait here, he takes his first few steps into the cave, and a few moments later, and after taking a very deep breath, she follows him. It's only after a dozen or so steps in that the master takes his lightsaber from his belt and ignites it. A green blade springs to life, and he holds it aloft in front of him as he walks ever deeper into the cave, one that's pretty much a straight path forward. The Padawan too takes her saber and ignites it, giving life to a blue blade, and walks a few paces behind him. Both are silent, but each step they take echoes into the darkness. It's then after a good 100 paces in, and with the entrance now a little more than a bright dot behind them, that another tunnel branches off from the main one, and that's when he looks over his shoulder and says to her, "Has the feeling changed at all?" She shakes her head and says, "Do you sense anything yet, master? Anything at all?" "Nothing," is all he says. He then motions with his head towards the new branching tunnel and says, "We go this way then. You seem pretty confident for not being able to sense anything." He then turns and gives her a slight smile before saying, "The correct path in life is rarely a straight line. Besides, this way looks like someone may have dug it out." With a curious look on his face now, he takes a few steps down this new tunnel and examines the rather flat wall on one side and says, yes, this has been dug out by someone or something. Probably a long time ago now. It could even be the entrance to a structure of some kind that's been buried, a temple even. Like an ancient Jedi temple, asks the Padawan with hope in her eyes. The master doesn't respond, and his silence tells her that probably isn't the case. After perhaps 100 more paces down the tunnel, the new branching tunnel, it opens into a rather large circular chamber with a domed ceiling high above, one that has clearly been constructed or dug out. Scattered all about the ground are rocks of all shapes and sizes that have seemingly fallen from the ceiling above. It's the Padawan who then says, after noticing that the walls and ceiling seem to sparkle, and sparkle so much so that it almost resembles stars in a nighttime sky, "Is that Kyber?" The master then moves closer to the wall, reaches out a hand and touches one of the numerous small, faintly glowing crystals and says, "It seems to be, though I don't sense it either. Almost reminds me of..." When the master falls silent, the Padawan speaks up. "Almost reminds you of what, master?" A trace of a smile touches the master's lips, and there's almost this sadness in his eyes as he simply says, "Ilum." "The Kyber planet?" she responds. He only nods his head, and then she looks down at the saber in her hand. I wish we could have gone there for my crystal. Or that I could have gotten one of my own from somewhere." The master then lays a hand upon her shoulder and says, "One day you'll make your own, I promise. For now, be thankful for what you have, Padawan, not disappointed over what you don't." To that she gives a slight roll of the eyes and says, "Must everything be a teaching moment with you, master?" And to that he simply responds, "A wise person never wastes an opportunity to teach, and a future wise person never wastes an opportunity to learn something, Padawan." It's then that a sound, very similar to rocks grinding, draws their attention to a particularly large mound of boulders in the center of the room, or what at first seemed to be just boulders, because the rocks begin to move and take a humanoid shape, and in the process reveal a child, a human boy, maybe around the age of 10, lying right behind this shifting mass of stone, which isn't stone at all, but rather a creature of some kind that stands a good head or two taller than the already tall Jedi Master. The Padawan then says, "Master, are you seeing this?" "I am," the Master interrupts as he deactivates his lightsaber and hangs it on his belt. A move that the Padawan questions with her eyes, but not her voice, and after a few more skeptical moments, she follows suit and deactivates her own saber, leaving the chamber lit only by the uncountable number of faintly glowing kyber crystals in the walls and ceiling, which actually offers quite a bit of light. "You should not be here," the creature says as it moves ever so slightly to now stand over the unconscious boy. "You're right," the master says, "and neither should the child. He must stay. And why is that? Long have I waited for one who would lure the darkness from the crystals. He has done that. Now the darkness will finally die with him." "I don't like the sound of that," the Padawan whispers, but her voice echoes and is almost certainly heard by the stone-like being. It is then that the stone being says, "His end will be painless, unlike what he did to my kind." The master takes a few steps forward, raising his hand slightly to show he means no harm. "I have seen and heard of many different beings across this galaxy, but never have I come across anything like your kind." The stone being responds, "Because I am the very last of my kind. The darkness destroyed the others a very long time ago." "And what exactly is this darkness?" The stone creature's head hangs slightly. "It came to our world during a time of conflict in the galaxy. Great was its power, and terrified of death it was. My kind, we are very long-lived, nearly immortal. We were even some of the first to know life in this galaxy, or so it was told to us by the caregiver." The master then interrupts and repeats, "The caregiver?" But the stone being ignores him and continues, "That is why the darkness thought it could use us to save itself from the ravages of time. It experimented upon us until I was the very last. In the end, when age had finally almost ended it, it brought me here, convinced it could take my place. And if it failed..." It is then at this point that the stone being looks at what seems to be just a pile of debris perhaps upon the floor, but is actually, upon closer examination, a pile of very ancient bones, seemingly of some sort of humanoid species. "If it failed, it would flee into the crystals and dwell there for however long it needed to. What it did not anticipate was that I would wait for it, however long I needed to." "And how long has that been, exactly?" The stone being seems to give that some careful thought, or to search for a way to answer or to explain, but ultimately says nothing, and the Padawan speaks up and says, "What did you mean, that it wanted to take your place?" The master then answers, "I believe he means essence transfer." "Is such a thing even possible?" The master gives a bit of a shrug as if to say, "Perhaps." The Padawan then asks of her master, "Do you really think this darkness could have survived and is living in the crystals? Is something like that even possible?" The master again gives a bit of a shrug. "There is much we still don't know about Kyber, about its connection to the Force and the immense power it contains. And I know even less about the Sith and what they were capable of." "The Sith? You really think?" The master interrupts. "Whoever this darkness was, they were almost certainly a Sith Lord." The master then looks again at the stone-like being and says, "And so, now what? You believe the darkness lured the boy into the cave and has taken him over? Why doesn't the darkness then flee?" "I am keeping the child asleep for now. Forever." "And how are you doing that?" It's the master who then answers and says, "He's no doubt strong with the Force himself, very strong. Has to be to live as long as he has. Which makes me wonder just how strong this Sith was to keep his kind enslaved for testing." The master then switches his attention to the stone being and says, "And what exactly are you waiting for?" The master motions with his head towards the child. "Why not end it?" "Master!" the Padawan exclaims. But he holds up a hand to her as if to say, "You gotta trust me on this one." And the stone-like being responds, "It is not easy to kill." A sadness then touches the master's face as he responds, "It never is." He sighs, then continues, "Then allow me to take the boy. I will find another way to destroy this darkness, one that spares the child's life." "This child's life means something to you?" "I am a Jedi. All life means something to me." That seems to intrigue the stone-like being. "A Jedi. This name is familiar to me. The darkness often spoke of your kind, and did so with great hatred." The master then takes a few more slow steps towards the stone-like being. "That is because my kind is a sworn enemy of the darkness, and I will do whatever I must to destroy it." The stone being almost looks hopeful for a moment and says, "So you will kill the child for me?" Still slowly walking towards the stone being, the master shakes his head and with a coy little grin says, "No, that's not what I meant. As I said, I will find another way to destroy this darkness. A way that does not cost the child his life." "And if that cannot be accomplished?" The master then comes to a halt. He's but a half-dozen paces away from the stone being and gives that question some serious thought. "If there is absolutely no other way, I will do whatever I must." "But master," the Padawan shouts out, and he quickly turns and asks of her, "This fear you've been feeling, it can only be the remains of a once powerful Sith Lord, one that cannot be allowed to live again. because if they do, they will bring this fear you're feeling right now to the whole galaxy. That is what they do. That thought seems to silence the Padawan, but the look on her face says she doesn't like any of this. He then turns back towards the stone-like being and says, "Let me take the boy. Let me try to find a way to destroy the darkness within him, but one that spares his life. And if I cannot, I will take the child's life myself. You have my word." Hearing his Padawan gasp at this causes the master to flinch. It's like he's physically been stung by her disappointment in him. The stone-like being then seems to consider that for a long moment before saying, "Why not just let the boy die?" There's not much of a difference between killing someone and letting them die. Those words almost seem to irritate the stone being a bit. He then looks down at the boy and says, "Certainly there are more of his kind in the galaxy. Is sacrificing one of them too high of a price to pay to stop the darkness forever? But there is only one of him, and sacrifice is a choice, one that would be his to make, not ours. I will not take his life without first doing all I can to stop the darkness another way. Besides, if we kill him here, the darkness may just return to the crystals and wait for another to appear someday." That seems to get the stone-like being thinking even more, and the master then says, "Let me take the boy. You can even come with us if you'd like. We have a ship not far from here." It's then that the boy begins to stir, and when he does, a look of fear and rage seems to overtake the stone-like being, and it raises its massive foot as high into the air as it can, as if ready to stomp it down upon the boy at his feet. And so the master quickly raises his hand and extends it palm out towards the stone being, and hits him with a massive force push that hits it like a gentle breeze on a spring day and doesn't budge him even a bit. In one quick fluid motion then, the master takes the saber from his belt, activates it, and tosses it like a spear, and it goes right through the chest of the large stone-like being. Once again, and before the foot can come down on the boy, and with seemingly every ounce of effort he has in his body, the Jedi once again unleashes a massive force push, and this time, it knocks the being backwards and onto his backside. As the master then pulls the hurled saber back to him, he rushes to the side of the boy who is stirring and places a hand just above the child's forehead, and a moment later the stirring stops and the boy is once again sound asleep. He then moves to the stone being and says, "I'm sorry, but I did what I must." And before he can say any more, the stone being simply says, "I believe you." The master gives a little shake of the head as if confused, and so the being elaborates, "That you will destroy the darkness no matter what it may require. I believe you." The master then kneels at his side and puts a hand on the massive forearm of the being, which seems to ease its pain ever so slightly, and says, "I will. I promise." With that, a rather contented look comes to the ancient face, and the stone being then says, "I have lived long enough to not fear my end." Those words seem to really resonate with the master, or make sense to him on a deeper level. He then looks again at the boy and motions for his Padawan to go over to him and says, "Is he where the fear you're feeling is coming from?" The Padawan then puts her hand just over the boy's chest and closes her eyes and concentrates. It only takes a moment or two before her eyes shoot open and she falls backwards. It's the boy, it's coming from him," is all she's able to say. With the stone being now having taken its last breath, the master gets to his feet and activates his lightsaber once more for light, as he moves to the pile of bones that was, apparently, a once powerful Sith Lord. And amongst the bones and the scraps of black cloth that remain, the master spots what at first seems to be little more than a rectangular stone, but upon that stone is inscribed a symbol, so faint that it's near impossible to make them out, but they're there. He then tucks it into his robes and turns and looks at his bewildered Padawan. "What are you going to do now?" she asks as she gets to her feet and brushes herself off. Her eyes have never strayed far from the child at her feet, the child and whatever darkness is within. "We're going to save the boy, of course. And if we can't?" The master says nothing, and instead gathers the boy up in his arms and begins to take him from the cave, stopping briefly to once again look at the ancient stone being and giving a bow of the head. The Padawan then follows and says, "You weren't serious, were you? What you told him? You won't kill the boy, will you?" All the master says to that is, "The right choice often isn't the easy one, my Padawan." And that is where this part ends. Well, that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought, good or bad. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Also, I don't know exactly when the next part will be up. This, unfortunately, will not be an every week thing like some of my previous stories have been, but hopefully there won't be too long of a break until the next one is done and up. Either way, again, do take to the comments below and tell me what you thought, and let's talk some Star Wars. And so, until next time, thanks for watching.